Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. This is my 21st YouTube presentation and I am doing it on Kali. My name is Kali Mir and I have been studying the occult and witchcraft and all this since 1983. So hail and welcome to everybody. So Kali is a Hindu goddess and she is one of the most in history maligned Hindu goddess and also very misunderstood. But she has become extremely popular. Now, back in the early 2000s, I had a website called Frisky-Kitty, and I made many web pages about her. And I am in love with Kali, and I am going to be discussing a lot of things maybe you know and maybe you do not know about her. So I'm going to be recommending some books. I have many more statues of Kali, but these are just the statues I put on the altar. And I have many books on Kali, but I'm only going to be showing a few. So Kali Ma, she is seen as the goddess of destruction and death. Yes, she is that. But she's so much more. She is seen in Wicca as the crone. And that is not always true. So, yes, she is a crone, but she's also seen as a young maiden as well as a mother. But a lot of times they will show her as a crone. She is a dark goddess, yes. But she's also very loving. And now she is a paradox. And as one is to view the mother, Kali, is to see a live rose and at the same time see it dead. Or also to see something dead and see it as alive. So we got a paradox with Kali. Because originally her form was meant to be ferocious. She was seen as a very ferocious goddess, especially in Bangladesh, where she arose from Bengal and that part of the area, and she was originally seen as ferocious, frightening, terrible. And now in the West, we like to see her calm and sweet. So here's a paradox. Then in the West, we say, oh, seeing her as terrible and ferocious and horrible is patriarchal. It was the patriarchs that made her horrible and terrible and ferocious. She's really a sweet, kind, neat type of goddess. Then in India, you'll see people say, yeah, but she was toned down, domesticated, but that was by patriarchs. They made her kind and sweet, and she'll bake you some cookies after you hurt yourself. When she's really ferocious, frightening, and terrible. So we see the paradox there. Kali Ma has many names, but, in India they say all deities are actually one being. Sort of like the human being. You have hair, you have eyes, you have nose. Each one functions for a different reason. I wouldn't smell with my eyes, but I wouldn't try to see with my teeth, right? So each one has a different function. So sort of like the eye. Let's say Kali is the eye. But there are many different aspects you say of Kali. Yes, there are different names like Raksha Kali, Nitya Kali, Vama Kali. So we take out the eye. Let's dissect the eye. It's sort of like the eye. That Kali, with the eye you have the cornea that covers, that. Then the sclera, the white of the eye, the iris, the pupil, and behind the eye you have the retina. So it's sort of like that. So There are different things, different part of the eye, different function. You can go break it down. Oh, well, there's blood cells and everything. I'm not going to get into it and all this, but I think I'm just trying to give you an analogy. So, how do we tell a peaceful, more peaceful form of Kali than the most ferocious? Okay, to see her more terrible form, her left foot will be out. Okay, look at the statue. Now, you want to... And yes, this may be on the right side, but if you were to, you know, turn your back towards a statue and stick your left foot out, and her right foot is behind her, and she holds weapons in her right hand, that is Shmashana Kali. That means cremation ground, but it's also like the ferocious Kali. Now, for right hand, her right foot is sticking out, and her left hand holds a weapon, then she is more she's more peaceful, Dakshina Kali. She is more approachable. What happens if both her feet are not sticking out, but there are weapons like this? Then she is ferocious. And here we see Kali without Shiva. And there are many misconceptions about her that are still going around. I want to show you some pictures, and I want to give credit where credit is due. We have this Kali from the Dark Goddess Oracle. I recommend that. We have this picture of Kali, where she's in the entrails. Queen of Swords from this deck. We have this card, and this comes from another god, the Goddess Oracle. And we also, the Durga comes from the same thing. And we have Bhadra Kali. Now this deck has two goddesses, Goddess Kali. We see Bhadra Kali. And her tongue is not hanging out. And she is not, well, she is laying on Shiva there, but we see she's not standing on Shiva here. And there are so many stories to her. And there's so many good books about her. Kali is both frightening and beautiful to behold. And it is said that it is easy to love God as Sarasvati, the goddess. We'll go into the goddess Sarasvati, as Lakshmi, as Pur Sundari, as someone peaceful and beautiful to look at. And it's more harder to love the goddess as Chinnamasta, with her head sliced off. Or as Dhumavati, the old crone who has swallowed her husband. Or Kali. So in order to love whatever god or goddess or the divine being, one must see goddess or god in the ferocious form in order to come to her. They say that her greatest curse is death. And one must overcome the curse and see it as a blessing, that one does not truly die. We just leave our body like a sword leaving a sheath. So, or an analogy of driving a car and then eventually it breaks down, you get a new car. So, sort of like that. So anyways, Kali brings consciousness to all things. As you see, this has the eye. That she brings life to all things. There is so much symbolism in this goddess. When the Westerners saw her, they realized, oh, they thought, well, at least they thought they realized that, ooh, they're savages. Look at this. Or when they saw images of Chinnamasta slicing off her own head and the blood going into the mouth of the severed head, and two ladies, naked ladies, were drinking her blood. But there was so much symbolism into it. In the Mahavija, she is listed as one of the Mahavijas and the first of the Mahavijas, which means she of great wisdom. And Kali is usually seen as the first. And the one that's seen the first and the last, okay, is Kamala is the last, or Kamalatmika. Kali is seen as universal truth, as the purest form of deity, the purest form of truth and of wisdom. She is one of the 7 tongues of Agni, and the tongue that is Kali is the dark tongue of the fire god Agni, which he is the god of fire. As Mahakali, she is seen with 10 heads, 10 arms, and 10 legs. But here is the one-headed Kali, Mahakali, and this green, this represents that, yes, she could be brought into the home. Because in some places, she's so wild that, hey, let's not bring her into the home. I mean, here in the West, we bring her into the home and everything. And, you know, I'm just saying, back in the old days, they said, unless she's wearing this green sash, she is not domesticated enough to be brought into the home, that she's wild. Her days, her special days of worship is Tuesday and Saturday, especially on Tuesday of the new moon. We're not talking about the crescent moon. Look on the calendar and you'll see a black moon. That's her, the dark moon, that we call in witchcraft the dark moon, when there is no moon. So on the Tuesday of the dark moon is her day. Also, Diwali, she is worshipped at that time too. The sword, her sword is the one that separates, but brings, because of separation, she brings unity. She separates the ego from the self. She uses this to defend her devotees from egocentric ideas and from enemies, and she saves the devotee from themselves. This represents a sliced ego. It is the head of Rakta Bija. She drinks the blood of ego, of the Kapala, which is the skull cup. She has 50 heads. Skulls are freshly cut heads around her neck. This represents the 50 letters of the original Sanskrit alphabet. This is the weapon of Shiva that she uses. Her tongue hangs out, and there are several meanings for that. Her name means black as well as time. As Kalika, she is she who destroys the darkness in the age of darkness. Sometimes she's seen to wear the high crown, like this, Bengali statue. She's not wearing anything. This mudra, her hand right here, this is the Varada, which represents boon granting, that she's the giver of gifts as well as the giver of life, and the giver of even to the point of perfection, so that one may find moksha, freedom. This is Abhaya. This is the fear not. This is fear's greatest fear. This is the enemy of fear. Kali she's married to her husband Shiva. But yet back in the day, a woman who was married was supposed to have their hair bound up. She wasn't supposed to step on her husband, nor should she hang out her tongue or stand naked. Here we see the defying of social norms. And also there's also meaning why her hair is down. The only time a married woman will put her hair down is if she's menstruating. Could she be menstruating? And then stepping on her husband? And there's different stories for that. And here we have the yantra of Kali as the Mahavija Kali. And her animals are snakes and jackals. Kala is the masculine form of Kali, and Kali is a feminine form of Kala. Kala meaning time. Kali skin is black for the most part. There's also pictures of her showing her with white skin, and then sometimes red skin and black skin, but sometimes she's seen as blue or indigo. Here we are. We see Kali white and her husband black. Kali, the feminine force. But let's look at the black skin represents Tamas. Here we see the devotee in Tamas. Rajas, which is red, which is the active world, the warrior role. She takes her tongue and she brings the devotee up from Tamas to Rajas. And her teeth are Sattva, the highest world. You have three worlds, Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. Here we see that she brings them to the teeth of Sattva and cuts them off, where they can go and be at perfection with the ultimate divine being. Here we see the terrifying, horrific mother being the savior. We've seen her being all merciful, all kind, to give one perfection, to save them from the wheel of reincarnation, from suffering, from sorrow, from pain. We see the mother in her ultimate act of mercy. Sri Ramakrishna was the one to really bring the Kali force to earth. And he was, in the 1800s, there are actual pictures of him. He was considered one of the minor there are 10 major incarnations of Vishnu. The 10th we're waiting for. But there are many other incarnations. He was considered an incarnation of Vishnu. And his wife was Sri Sarada Devi, who was a very powerful female saint. So therefore, then she would have to be sort of like Lakshmi. But she was also a devotee of Kali. But he brought the Kali force to earth, and he was a saint. He was a very powerful sage. A very powerful saint. And through his works, and you can look up the Sri Ramakrishna Foundation. We're not talking about Krishna the God. We're talking about Sri Ramakrishna. Totally different from the other deity that one day I'll talk about. And through his mission, he brought Kali, and he cleared up a lot of misunderstandings of Kali. And here's another paradox. You have a Vaishnavi form of Kali, where the temple I went to, which showed her in more of a vegetarian form, where she does not accept sacrifices. the Divya Dham in Woodside, Queens. That they would give her vegetables and fruits and nuts, but they would not give her animal sacrifice. But yet there are temples that are literally ossuaries that were built on skulls, and human skulls, but also animal sacrifice. And the Dakashineshwar temple actually once in a while does a goat sacrifice. Now one would think, oh, it's barbaric. Oh gosh, no. I'm so sad. Let me go eat that Kentucky Fried Chicken. Oh, well, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat that, someone might say. Well, here's the thing. They sacrifice the goat. They give the blood. They give, to Kali. And also, it's cooked up. You think they're going to let good meat go to waste? Dakashineshwar is one of the famous temples of India where Sri Ramakrishna was the priest, the saint, the wise sage. There's also a famous temple in California in, I can't think of where it's at. It's in California. It's called the Kali Mandir. I'm drawing brain for it. In fact, when I talked about her being a savior, Sri Ramakrishna gave her the name Bhavatarini, which means savior of souls. She now becomes the power of a Messiah, a savior, where she saves the souls of the people, of her devotees. There was once I was watching a video, and it was in, I think, Hindi, but they would put in captions, and a little child was looking at Kali. She said, "Father, why is Kali so ferocious? Why is she scary? Why is she terrible?" And the father said, "She comes in the ferocious form to save her devotees from evil, pain, and misery. She comes and fights the evil entities that would, and the evil entities within our own head that keep us down. She takes on this form with all her weapons to destroy the things that would hurt her devotees, and also what goes on in our own head, because sometimes we can be our worst enemies. We can do to ourselves like no enemy can do to us." So here the arms around her waist, I didn't get to that, represents, she cuts off all the karmic actions. So all your past deeds will not come to haunt you. She will cut those off and wear them as a girdle. She slices off the head of the ego, and she drinks the blood where it cannot reproduce. She has 3 eyes, this ferocious one, of past, present, and future. Her hair is wild and unbound and untamed, for she is a goddess who will not be defeated by any enemy. Her hair, each strand of hair represents a person that when she wants to, she can set free. She shows herself naked, for she reveals all. She also represents the night sky at night. She takes on many aspects. People say, "You can't heal with Kali. You would not like what you get." Really? Is that why from ancient times people have called Kali for healing? in ancient times, not modern times. And we're talking about Raksha Kali, especially as a healer, the goddess that deals with the blood, and Nitya Kali, they would call on healing. You would not call her for fertility. Really? Even a Kali Puja, she is called on to have children. She is called on to have the armor of God. She is a goddess of protection, but she's also a goddess of war. In fact, warriors would worship her for the battlefield to be victorious, to be protected, to defeat their enemies. She is a goddess used for protection, but also she can be used for cursing. Oh, yes, she can. And there are tantrics from back in the day into today that can use her for cursing. Good or bad, they can use her for cursing. So like you have Shmashana Kali, the goddess of the cremation. Dakshina Kali, the one who faces south. Raksha Kali, who deals with the blood. You have Rakta Kali, I should say. Rakta Kali. And Raksha Kali. Let's look here. You have Mahakali, which means the great Kali. You have Dakait Kali. Woo. Dakait Kali deals with the goddess of thieves. Yes, thuggies. And she was worshipped by thuggies. She was also the goddess Vamakali, the goddess on the left. Vamakali. Ugra Kali, which is like scary, fierce, horrible to look at. Bhavatarini Kali, the savior of souls. Sri Ramprasad was a poet, but also a saint, who wrote love songs to Tara and Kali. And sometimes he would get so angry with Kali, he would have a real relationship with her, not like a kiss-ass relationship. Sometimes he would say, there is no mercy on you, no kindness. You beat your child. You have no shame. And then he would write like, I love you so much, you're so beautiful, you're so great. But it was a working relationship. It was a real relationship, as if he was yelling at his own mother of, how dare you, Mom? How could you do this to me? And sometimes Kali can be a hard pill to swallow. Oh my God. Whee! She can be a hard pill to swallow, but she's also very giving and loving. Or as Sri Ramakrishna says, the mother sometimes will beat the child, but the child will come and look upon as mother. So here's some books. We got Kali Puja, I recommend if you want to do a... This is like really intense worship, but you don't have to do the whole book at one time. I mean, if you have time, you can do it. My favorite book of all time on Kali. Kali by Elizabeth Hugh Harding. Don't worry, I'll get into more. Kali, the feminine force. This gives me time to remember a lot of things that I want to talk about, because there's so much I want to talk about and I don't use notes. One by Baal Kadmon. Oh no, where is it? No, don't open that book. Talking to inanimate objects. Baal Kadmon. Kali Mantra Magic. It's a small book, but it's active working with using mantra and magic and summoning the dark powers of Kali Ma. So other books, and there's a ton of books I have on her, but I don't have time to show you all. Encountering Kali, in the margins, at the center, and in the west. Offerings, flowers, feeding skulls. Popular Goddess Worship in West Bengal by June McDaniel. The Sword and the Flute, Kali and Krishna by David R. Kinsley. Sorry if I'm going so fast. 24 Aspects of Mother Kali by Babaji Bob Kindler. Oh, this is good. And this is what I was talking about. Mother of the Universe. Visions of the Goddess and Tantric Hymns of Enlightenment by Lex Hixon. And this has the poems by Sri Ram Prasad. Like, please bring my poems with you. Or, the harvest of illumination for all living beings. Could a foolish poet grasp her mysteries? So, each one is like, has so much meaning to her. So, I don't use notes. No notes on me. Everything is from my head. So we see the moon, Chandra, on her. The moon god. And we see that sometimes she blots out the sun. And it represents the moon go in front of the sun, an eclipse, and she can be worshipped on the eclipse. Worship Kali on the dark moon. But people like to worship her on a full moon, and that's fine. Her planetary powers are Mars and Saturn. Tuesdays and Saturdays, like I said, is the best. You can worship her anytime. Her personal favorite flower in the whole world is the red hibiscus. The red hibiscus. But she also loved lotuses. The Thuggees would worship Kali, and there was some debate on, did they actually exist? It was said that, David Warr Kinsley wrote about them. And actually the mantra one of the mantras they would use is Jai Shakti Mukti Kali Ma. Victory to the goddess, the Shakti, the power, who is perfect, Kali Ma. Jai Shakti Mukti Kali Ma, Jai Shakti Mukti Kali Ma. And it was said that it was only a few hundred years old, and it would be passed on from father to son, and they would do whatever necessary, as in worship the Kali, but also to get by. And they would do thieving, and they would steal, and they would rob, and even kill, and so that they can get rid of all the attachments and, take the pleasures of life, and then no longer have to do it and worry about it. Just get your kicks off and get done with. And it was stomped out by the British when they colonized India. And because the Thuggees went too far, they just didn't kill and rob the Indians. Well, they went after the British. So, the British stomped that out. Okay, so we see Thuggees were pretty much criminals, and one of the goddesses aspect would be Dakait Kali Ma. Interesting enough, Dakait Kali Ma is still worshipped, but it was also worshipped by devout people who love Kali, but are also good, honest people. Because that's just an aspect of Kali. So that we love Kali, and we're going to love her in all her aspects. And there are thieves today and people who may be on the outskirts that may worship Dakait Kali Ma. I am not endorsing that. So, So the offering of coconuts, what does that have to do with anything? Well, people in the ultimate sacrifice to Kali or Durga would take a sword and cut their head off as an ultimate sacrifice, the final sacrifice. And it was eventually, discouraged, and they said that the goddess came to sages and the rishis, and they would say, no longer do this. The goddess no longer wants you to cut your head off. As an act of devotion, give her the coconut to represent your head. So you could literally take a knife, be careful, and just lightly touch your throat. Make sure it's not sharp. And just pretend you're chopping off your head and give her the coconut. People to this day offer her animal sacrifice. I'm not telling you to go sacrifice animals. Okay? And it should be done with total respect. And are you going to eat the animal? Or are you just going to let it waste? So, failing that, people like to actually go to KFC or actually cook up a meal for her. If you're going to offer her meat, then, you know, they just cook up a delicious meal for her and give it to her. Failing that, some people like to, like, you know, I would just recommend those landslets for diabetes testing. So if people like to give her blood, they would that and put it on her, and devotion to her, and put it on her tongue. As she did. Some temples she loves blood, and sometimes, well, she doesn't. So when you go to a temple and they don't give animal sacrifice, then don't leave like beef jerky. I'm not beef jerky, like turkey jerky or chicken jerky. Just be respectful of that temple. Okay? I know some temples were getting sick of people leaving food around, but people would still do it, and I see people just, you know, there were signs and people were leaving fruits and bagged nuts, and that's fine. And they were like, oh, don't burn incense, and people like burning incense. And it's a beautiful murti. They call it murtis. And Takali and its life form. And it is the Diva Dham. If you're in New York, please go. They have so many statues. It's like the biggest, back then was the biggest temple to the Hindu temple. And they have a cave in the temple. Well, it's a man-made cave. And you go in and you see 3 goddesses, Mahasarasvati, Mahalakshmi, Mahakali. So why do they have Mahasarasvati, Mahalakshmi, Mahakali? When the Trinity is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. But there's different trinities. That's the most famous of life, creation, Brahma. Preservation and nurturing, Vishnu. Death and destruction, Shiva. Where there was other trinities involving Surya, Agni, and Varuna, and sometimes it was, you know, another god that was replaced. But the female trinity, Mahasarasvati, she is the knowledge. She is the creation, the beginning. You have Mahalakshmi, and she has many arms. Not just like the regular Lakshmi. This is many arms and weapons. Literally, Mahasarasvati has weapons. And the Mahalakshmi has weapons. But she's all beautiful. And she represents to the, you know, worldly desires and, you know, for comforts, creature comforts, and things that you need to live with. And things that preserve life and nurture life. Then you have Mahakali, who will destroy and also deals with death. Oh, Yama is a god of death, not Kali, they will say. Well, if you look at the Hindu pantheon, millions of deities. So of course they're going to overlap. This is not Highlander. There can only be one. Okay? You can't peg hole a deity, nor can you pigeonhole it. Okay, when her main directions are north and south. North and south. And the south is the land of the dead, and Yama is the king of the dead. But it is said that even Kali, when she showed herself, Yama went running for safety and cover. They say that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva worship the Devi. Devi, meaning goddess, she is, or she who is. Shakti is power. And we're not talking about a person who has power over their citizens, or who has power to force people. We're talking about energy. We're talking about the life force, the energy force for creation. She is Shakti. When deities get angry, it is said that Rama killed the 10-headed Ravana. Well, Sita killed 100-headed one, and they say, well, she became Kali to show the greatness of Kali. One time, Shiva came to his wife Parvati, the daughter of the mountains. He said, call her Kali, and she got angry because her skin was kind of dark. So she went and did austerities, and she did yoga, and she did cleansing. And the black sheath that came off her, and she became, as Shiva called her, Mahagauri, the shining one, the bright one, the white, the golden one. Where her sheath became Kaushiki. And that's actually a dark battle goddess. Now, why do I bring this out? Because when Kaushiki, the battle goddess, gets angry, she manifests Kali. Durga, this goddess, this is more of a Bengal one. The Durga that rides the lion is more of the Indian form. This is Bengal one. And look how angry she is. But when she becomes angry, when she frowns, when she knits her eyebrows together, it's saying that Kali comes out of her eyebrows, or that she becomes Kali herself. When Sati became angry at Shiva, she became Kali. In fact, she manifests herself as the Mahavijas, the 10 goddesses. When Parvati becomes angry, she becomes Kali. You see the thing here? And they said, well, she sheds her form and becomes her true form, Kali. The dark one, the powerful one. It is said that during the great fight, when the goddess was called by the gods to defeat the demon army of Mahiyasura, Nishumba, Shumba, Chanda, Munda, and Raktabija. They formed a beautiful goddess who, in her fear when she met their generals who wanted to claim her and own her, the patriarchal forces. This is not a slight against men, please. Don't even go there. This is not a sexist thing. It represents humanity dominating nature and destroying it and destroying women. But it also represents other things in our head. Each demon that she conquers. Durga defeats Mahiyasura. She calls upon in her anger another goddess who is ferocious. And just by her size, she makes another feminine form, a warrior. And one of these forms defeated Chanda and Munda. Chandra is the moon god. Chanda and Munda. And where Durga gives her the name Chamunda, the defeater of Chanda and Munda. And she goes, I left Nishumba and Shumba for you to defeat, to Durga. I wish I could really get into more of the story. But, I'm running out of time. And you're probably getting bored with me. And it was when the goddess kept on injuring Raktabija, every time her blood would hit the ground, another Raktabija came, until there was thousands of Raktabija. It was in the form of Kali, where she would slash them and drink their blood. so that none of the blood would touch to the ground. And there would be no more Raktabija clones. There would be no more copies of him. He would no longer, because he would self-replicate. She put an end to that. So we see Durga, even though she's ferocious, she has the clothes and her weapons may have some blood on it, but not her. Kali is not afraid to, I mean, I'm not saying Durga is afraid, but Kali is the one that gets the blood on her. She does the bloody work. She's the one that wears their arms and their heads. This is also a different form of her, where even she wears the heads around her, and you can see, but they put, like, okay, Kali, will domesticate you a bit and put the green on you. But each weapon has a meaning. The conch is very sacred. It's actually used as, you blow on it like a horn, but also when you put water in it and you sprinkle, it purifies the place. The mace is a Brahmastra, the weapon of Brahma. But it was also described, if two Brahmastras hit each other, there'd be no life that can grow there for at least 10 years. It sounds like a nuclear weapon. You know, and this is extremely powerful. The shield, sometimes it's described as if her weapons are not. And one description say, oh, well, if it's not ultimate, they'll have a shield. But I see it as her shielding her. It's also used as shielding her devotees. Shielding them. Protecting them. Like, here, get behind my shield. I'll protect you. I'll take off your ego. And I'll make sure it does not replicate. That all the things that you're doing will not replicate. I'll drink the blood. This is the discus. Like, sometimes it's actually seen the weapon as the sun itself. Flattened, but also that of a chakra that she uses as a weapon. Here she uses the different weapons to cut. And shows her power. The fire. Why is she on her Shiva? There's different meanings. After the great battle of all these demons destroyed, Kali was angry. She was drunk on the blood. Sort of like the story of Sekhmet, if you look at my videos and look for Sekhmet. And she was angry that the gods gave the demons, the Asura, powers. And the power was that they can only be defeated by a woman. So she went on a rampage. And the most popular one that was written by the Brahman was that the gods prayed for her to stop, and she wouldn't. She was going to destroy all of creation, and as she stepped, as she danced, the skies became horrible looking, the volcanoes and earthquakes. So they prayed to Shiva, and they woke him up. Your wife has gone crazy. Please save us. She cannot control herself. So he threw himself on the battlefield. And when she stepped on him, she realized that it was her husband, and that calmed her down. And her tongue hung out. Now there's an older story behind that's older than that. Let's go back to the battlefield. She's going crazy, rampaging. She said, I'm gonna destroy it all, including the gods. I'm going to bring it all into dissolution. All will come back to me. It's done with. It's over. Shiva was pleaded with, so he showed up in the battlefield as a baby, and he cried. And Kali heard the crying, and she ran over to the baby, and her breast became full of milk, and she picked up the baby, she kissed him on the head, and she nursed the baby. Now, there's two meanings for that. The first meaning of the adult is one must not fear Kali. One must Lay down on the ground and let her trample on you. Let her stand on you, and she will be happy that you came to her as a warrior. That you showed no fear. In the face of fear, you showed no fear. You became a hero, a brave warrior. And bravery is not about not having fear. It's having fear, but facing it and having the courage. So that's one of the meanings. There's so many meanings with this. The baby one is one should come to God as a child. That's even spoken even in the New Testament as coming to as innocent as a babe, as a child's innocence. And there she will pick you up from the dreck, from the battlefield. And there she would kiss you on the head and nourish you and nurture you. She will be peaceful with that. So those are the two main ways to approach this goddess. Now, also the reason why an Orisa version of the reason why her tongue is hanging out, because she was embarrassed. I don't look at her as being embarrassed, but that's fine. But, you know, in the Orisa tradition, when someone does something that they're ashamed of, they stick their tongue out and they kind of bite it. You ever think, I gotta bite my tongue? Oh God, I shouldn't have done that. With me, when I sometimes I've known some Kali worshippers when sometimes they get happy, they like their tongue hangs out, like, hey. And also one looks at a dog sometimes when they're there's a reason why they have their tongue out, but sometimes they're happy. Where she's happy and she's placated. Where she's in supreme bliss that her tongue hangs out. But like I said, she defies cultural norms. She steps on her husband. She has her hair unbound. She's naked. So how is she embarrassed? How is she embarrassed when she prances around the cremation ground? She's naked. She's there slashing, slicing, and dicing. She's there guzzling blood, getting blood all over her, wearing either freshly severed heads that are gushing blood, that are literally vomiting blood, or wearing skulls, and she's wearing a girdle of severed arms, and she's there with blood all over her. How is she embarrassed? And another version of her being on Shiva, there's different stories, is without Shakti, Shiva, he is Shiva. There she's standing on Shiva. Is she appearing out of him? And there's actually a story where she does go inside him and comes out of him. And there was a demon that was given, his name was Daruka. And he was causing problems, and he was given a boon that only a woman can defeat him. Again, that masculine, me, he, man. Women are weak. I'm to dominate women. Woman, cook my food. Woman, get underneath me. Woman, bear my children. Woman, you are nothing. So Daruka was going around causing problems, and Shiva goes to Parvati. Parvati, can you stop this? She says, sure, honey. She's like, yes, I will. So Parvati turns herself into a spirit and goes in him, and he has poison in his throat. That's why he's called Nila Shiva, the blue throat Shiva. And that was from, you know, the churning of the ocean of milk. And that's another story where he drank, where the poison fell when they were churning the milk of the cosmic ocean. He drank the poison to save all of creation. He drank the deadly poison, so it was in his throat, in which the goddess actually nurtured him as Tara with her breast milk. But regardless, she goes into his throat, right? And she comes out ferocious. And she defeats Daruka. So here we see, is she going to defeat now Daruka? There's also a story of after he lost Sati, he gains her as Parvati, and he says, show me yourself as you did once before. And so she did. She showed herself as Kali. And he says, put your foot on me. Stand on me as you've done before. And she did. And he was in bliss. As you can see, he's blissful. He's happy. And here, look. He's like, I'm so happy. Her seed mantra is cream. It's a seed meaning alphabet. Cream. Cream, K-R-I-M. K stands, there's so much to it, but K stands for knowledge. R stands for her holiness, her sacredness, her auspiciousness. I. The I stands for her, oh God, it's slipping my mind. The I stands for her, oh my God, I forgot. Don't I feel stupid? Anyways, I'll get back to that. Okay, I just had a burn for it. But the eyes, cream is her sacred syllable, seed syllable mantra. And I'm sure it's in here. I never do this. Forgive me, please. But anyways, I wanted to show you what cream looks like anyways, the letter. If it's actually in here. I believe it's in this book. It probably isn't. Oh! There it is. And I can't even find... Okay, so let's do this again. K stands for her knowledge. R stands for her auspiciousness. I stands for that she actually gives boons. So we see this hand would be the I. And the M. Work, brain. Okay, drum roll, please. Stands that she gives moksha. Okay, I remembered. Yay! I just made an ass out of myself, everybody. Woohoo! But anyways, seriously, that's what it stands for. So cream. It's also the same word for crime in Creole. Cream. Crime. So here we see arrows and everything here. There was also something else I want to talk about. Oh, the Gandharva Tantra. In the Gandharva Tantra, there's a story, and it has meaning, that Shiva was making love to, went to the police, Parvati, and Parvati said, would you do anything for me? He said, yes. Become female and make everything female. So that's what he did. So everything becomes female. He becomes, because he became female and she's female, so everything becomes female. So she asked him to become female. Okay? So in the Gandharva Tantra, the king, what's his name? Ila was hunting, and he happens to catch Parvati and Shiva, but Shiva was a female now. And Shiva kind of giggles and he goes, since you've seen us, I will grant you anything you want except for one thing. You will not be granted manliness. Because when King Ila looked at himself, he was no longer a man. He was female. So there we see is that the Gandharva, in that part is teaching that all spirits, the highest form of God is goddess, is the feminine form. And interesting enough, at conception, everything is female until the hormone, the male hormone, testosterone enters the play where it becomes male. So originally, female, y'all were female. Before testosterone came in. So, they look that up in Gandharva Tantra. Look these wonderful books up. Get that out of here. So if we look at, like even Bhadrakali, she gives worldly power, earthly enjoyment, fearlessness in battle, access to the feminine powers and virtues. And let me get the other card. Why not? I hope I can find it. Here it is. Here's the other one. Kali, goddess of destruction. And here's Bhadra Kali, goddess of darkness. Purification of the subtle forces. Purification of the subtle force centers. Ascension of the divine Kundalini energy. Happiness and fulfillment in this world. Divine ecstasy of the transcendent reality. Like I said, Shakti. Without Shiva, goddess is Dhumavati. But without Shakti, the god Shiva is Shiva. And I already just been talking for a whole hour, blah, blah, blah. I thank you for bearing with me. But I do want to sum this up. Is that, you know, the gods, you know, Vishnu is married to Lakshmi. But each god, if you look in the mirror self, if you look in your mirror self, as if they were looking in the mirror self and they're male, but they're female reflection. Like Narayana has Narayani, a goddess. Ganesha, when he looks in the mirror, would be Ganeshvara. There's also Ganeshvara and Narasimha. If he looks in the mirror, it's Narasimhi. When Kala would look in the mirror, it would be Kali. Are you getting the point here? When Indra looks in the mirror, it would be Indrani. If Brahma looks in the mirror, it would be Brahmani. That's the best way analogies I can put it. It's deeper than that. So this is his energy. He's manifesting his energy. It's sort of like if the sun was male, the light and the heat and the warmth would be female. If the battery was male, it's the energy that makes things work as female. You get what? That's the best. It's such deeper than that. Shakti is power. And there's also Mahashakti, the great power. And Kali, the goddess. There's so much to her. There's so much to her. And I really hope there's also images of Kali in Guyana that doesn't have her tongue out because they said it was inappropriate. But here we see Bhadra Kali with no tongue out. So she is more than a crone. Sometimes she is nurturing as a mother. Sometimes she's very young, like 16 years old. So she's more than a crone. She's not just about death and destruction. She's also about transcending it. She's about transcending things, transcending your ego, transcending your fear. She's a goddess of change. So in the tarot, she would represent death, the Tower, and the Queen of Swords. So she represents about getting rid of your false ideology. She's a goddess of spirituality. And when we come and face these fears, we become stronger. She is she's at once the ferocious goddess to the most beautiful goddess. And that's just names. Let's see if I can find some of her names. There's 108 names, and then there's the 1,000 names of each goddess. Like Durga would have that, Sarasvati would have it. Like we have the name Matrika, she who is the mother in the form of letters. Matrika. Matrika means little goddess, but she is also the form of letters. We have Drava, she who is what you value. We have Mahamari, she who is the great destroyer. So these are just some of her names. Shakini, she who is the energy of peace. Rakini, she who is the energy of subtlety. So we have all these different names. See, this is the 10,000 names I was But no, that wasn't 10,000. It was the 1,000 names. I was like, what the hell? The 1,000 names. And they have the 108 names, too, like, almost like a song. So, things to offer her. Like I said, you can offer her fruit, vegetables. Also, before you eat your meal, like after you just cook it, you offer like the meal to her. And for 15 minutes, after 15 minutes to 20 minutes, usually 15 minutes, you can eat it. Sorry, I'm thirsty. And I'm choking on my own water. I don't have COVID. Sorry. Anyways, you can eat it as prasad. That she ate the energy. So anyways, there's so much to her. And I could go on and on and on, but I'm not. So if you like this video, please subscribe. Please give me a like and share with your friends. I've been going on for an hour and six minutes, so thank you. Jai Ma.